Okay, so I'm just going to show how what is reflected on the screen or any screen, computer, whatever, reflects back to you your own thoughts, but also reflects to you what the bottom line of the actual computer videos, or what they're actually saying, or who is saying it, kind of is. And this is what I call, and what is really, the end time deception. I've been told this, that at the end, or because don't forget, it's not really the end, it's all one time. It's just that time is slowed down, even though things, the past is there, the present is there, and in the moment there's always a possibility, I would think, to kind of tweak what's happened or what is going to happen. But, you know, being very limited myself, of course, I should sound sure of these things, because obviously I think them and I'm shown them, so I should believe them. But I guess if things don't always work out in your own personal favour, there is always going to be doubt. And this is what the those that control the reality rely on to a large extent. They rely on that doubt, on that confusion, on that fear, which is part of the game. And it's not a pleasant game, it's not an easy game. No, I would have to say it. It's easier if you're in the dark in some ways, even though of course you will be taken advantage of. But I think it's funny how that almost feels like Groundhog Day when I said that, because I know I've said it many times before, because I am still in Groundhog Day in a way, because I'm still on that roller coaster. I'm aware of it, and I can, in other words, it's like being on that, like that mouse on that treadmill. You know how you see the mice, they've shown this in videos, on the treadmill, where they're still going around on the treadmill, but maybe they can fleetingly see what is around them as well while they're on that treadmill. That's what it's kind of like for when you kind of realise things, but you're still on the treadmill because you don't know how to stop it, because your feet are still going around on that. You know, you don't know how to stop it without a crash or something, almost, you know, because it's just a natural momentum to keep going on that treadmill. You know how, well, anyway, but either way, what I was going to show you, because it just come up and I couldn't help, even though, you know, I don't feel like it, in the sense that, you know, because the physical body is also part of this reality. When you're in this reality, everything becomes physical. It's a physical reality. You know, we know that our human mind appears to not be physical, and our, you know, our thoughts and emotions and things appear not to be physical, but they affect the physical body, which is why, you know, if you have negative beings around you, negative people, patrolling people that are trying to restrict you, because essentially if you're dealing with the psychopathic, negative, narcissistic breed of people, or if that mindset has taken over to where their ego is the only thing that they are almost. In other words, to where it's like their whole, this is what I'm told, and this is also the condition, the state of mind, because your state of mind naturally will make you act a certain way. Just like there is a siren going right at this moment as I'm speaking, because the siren is acknowledging what I'm saying, but it's also trying to distract me from continuing on with a clear train of thought, so that I can keep at least being sounding sensible, making sense, because there's no point in me showing these things if it isn't comprehensible. Because to me it's quite clear when I see these things around me, and when I turn the computer on or the TV screen comes up, the computer, and it's like, see what I think and what a real human thinks. But don't forget, it will be tailored to yourself, because they are trying to combine with your thinking. They're taking your thoughts and all your ideas and emotions, and even your intellect as you comprehend things, and then they transfer it onto the screen. Because I'm sort of almost exclusively obsessed with thinking about the characters, the psychopathic, narcissistic types of characters, because I see them all around me. So I'm like, I need to understand them in order to survive myself, even though understanding is still only half the situation, or half actually accomplishing survival. Because if you have most of those around you with this nature, and they are acting covertly in their control system around you, but also on the screen, you will see this one here openly says that they are an anti-life, essentially anti-life, anti-human, psychopathic, narcissistic personality or being. But this one is, and this just come up, so I'm going to go with it, because I have actually thought, essentially they are killers of human nature. So this one, and it calls itself the Royal, but they are not part of real human. And I think that if you look at the actual whole thing and just look at what your instinct tells you when you look at that first up, even though that face is the same as that face, but that face is openly admitting, because they're using their knowledge, because they're a professor of psychology, and using their knowledge as a career, as a life, as a means to an end. And also it means that they do get what they call the attention and the energy from human beings by making the videos, because it's impressive, and that's an older one too, of this particular one, as it says 10 years ago. This one says, see, this is a bit more honest, because it's downloaded the human thought almost quickly, and it's 3 days ago. But there's no difference between the one that makes this video. In fact, can you see it? Is it ringing a bell? Like, this is what you have to do. You have to cut through what is said or what is written to where you think that is true. They are not part, they are part of the matrix, you know, part of the anti-life system that is this reality, even if it's at a local personal level or at the bigger picture worldwide thing, you know, because, but that one there is no different to that one there, except that that one is unusually, due to making success out of it, shall we say, open about being, you know, what does it look like? You know, they will eventually kill me and anyone else that is not the same as them. But essentially, when you think of it, because they are like survival, ego, negative, or even what you'd call anti-life, anti-life machine type beings, in the sense that they don't relate or like or have any association, or don't want to have any association with any other human being, even their own kind, or in other words, even those that are also egocentric, survival type machine beings, you could say. Because, you know, they're only, I mean, we're all like that to some extent. And they make you like that too. They want you to be like that. They don't want you to even be slightly real, or what you would normally do if you were in a free natural world. Because obviously, if I'm patrolled and controlled and can't feel comfortable and feel tracked and feel watched and feel stifled and feel disliked by most around, even though the very patrollers will of course smile in your face, even they will talk to you if you speak to them and pretend that they are the most pleasant, likeable, kind people. But they only do that to camouflage their true nature, so they go undetectable in society or in the local community. That's how they get away with it. Sometimes they will, if you were, say, actually didn't pretend like they pretend, they will then give you the cold shoulder, and they will seek a lot, but essentially they prefer to play the game to where they're undetectable and to where they don't appear to have a grudge or anything against you, to where it doesn't appear that they're trying to control or limit you. That's part of the game of all these people, and these ones will tell you this. The only thing is that these ones that are telling you, whether they pretend to be real life or where you have, because these two just come up to me this very moment. This is why I'm using it. I didn't seek it out. There's nothing clever about what I'm doing. It just came up. But this one, more rarely out in the open, saying what they are. Of course, this will also be seen as a help though, because it's like, watch these videos because I'm telling you what I am, and therefore telling you what to avoid. So therefore watch me, give me the admiration, attention, even though I am basically a psychopathic killer of human nature or human spirit. I will kill your human nature, your human spirit. I am of the original God that, or demigod, that came to this world at the beginning of the natural earth and was able to convince real life that it was better to mix with a killer that pretends to be connected to real life. But all I'm saying is just use what instantaneously comes to you when you look at something. Forget about the words they use, forget who they say they are, or who they pretend they are, or who they pretend to be affiliated with. In other words, that they're trying to help you, that they're on your side, and that they are, yes, one of you. You know, there's no difference on the screen or on the computer or on this, because it's about technology. There's no difference between these two, even though they're both saying the similar thing. So they're both helping. The only difference is that, you know, because different people will be attracted to different demigods. In other words, those that speak things or that are giving information out. I don't think I'm explaining this well, but what I'm saying is, as I'm saying about everything that is nearly on the internet, you may as well assume that everything on the internet is really not what you think it is. It is not real. It is not truth in any way. The demigods may speak the truth as they will, but that's only because they know that some humans have woke up to the truth. So that's their way of, once again, seducing you, making you give them attention, making you be influenced by them, or essentially trust them, because it's all about trust. Just as little Eve took the hand of the demigod and walked out of paradise. I use this story because it is such a good, what they call analogy to what happens. And that's it, you know. Because it's really about a vendetta against real creative life, a vendetta that, you know, or a vendetta that has been held and kept going in the mind of this demigod that controls the earth, or one that, it doesn't matter, because its disciples, its children, and its beings that populate the earth now and that basically tend to surround real life, once they realize that there is someone that is real life, in other words, that's a bit different to them, they will try to suppress and surround that person. But also, it's about them also, you know, that even with their own, they don't often differentiate the real life from their own kind in their mind. The only difference is that, like, what happens is these gangs, these community groups, these belief system based cults, that means just simply that they're large groups of people that have a common bond, a common thread, or a common thing that they will combine with, a bit like religion, where the religion will unite people even that wouldn't normally get on, wouldn't normally like one another. But it matters not because they're combining, or a bit like if you have a war, I suppose, where a country where you know, an army will band together under some pretense or some common belief or some common goal or idea that they have, that they are obsessed with, assuming that they do this voluntarily, in order to suppress or attack or take control of another group of people or another place, which is the same thing. But when it's done individually, that is won't be seen as open attack on people, because it will be done, because especially if it is going against the laws of the land, like I said this before, like patrolling and stalking people is against common law, at least where I live. And yet, if you have 9 out of 10 people in an area doing it, it would be very hard for that to be detected. It would go undetected, even though it's going, but of course it's going on daily, but of course it's only around particular people. So if it's only around me, it's not going to be detectable at all, especially when most of the area is this combined cult or this combined community group. This community could make up 130,000 people. It could make up even more. So it's very large numbers. And even if there was, you only have a couple of real people in that area, or you might have more than a couple, you might have even if you had 10, even if you had 20, it wouldn't matter, because if most of them were in the dark to where, there wasn't the open stalking, patrol, noise, frequency, vibration, attack being levelled at you, if it was just, like where they're controlling you at a personal level, because if you have these beings controlling people at a personal level, they may not see the bigger picture or the actual community group that is actually in connection even with the individual personal people that you may have in your life. In other words, if you were married to someone who was part of this community that is a patrol control force, where they combine because they have a vendetta or an animosity, or just even if it's just at that egocentric level to where they see someone else stealing their so-called limelight, because these people are survival machines that notice every detail. They're extremely petty, in other words. Because they watch someone 24 hours, which a normal person wouldn't do, because it's a waste of time and energy for a normal person, but not for them, because they extract negative energy, and because they're obsessed, and because that's all they have in their life. That's how they focus. Their focus is on individuals that they see as some sort of challenge to their petty, egocentric nature, because they're, like what happens around me, where if I just do normal activities, they don't like the normal things that I do, particularly if they think it is something human, to where they think, but I don't do that. I even try to do things where no one's watching, which means that I can't live my life. And that's very hard, to do something where no one's watching. In other words, if I want to throw a piece of bread for the birds, I'll try to find it. I'll spend ages doing that, because I'll be frightened to do it in front of the psychopathic patrolling force that is around me of these individuals pretending to be real life humans, because they take offence at that, because they're like, oh no, we should do that because then that makes us look better, makes us look more human. Whereas you're just doing it because you feel like doing it. And you're like, why should I have to, limit myself and suppress my liking, say, for, the natural wildlife or birds, because of them? And that's essentially what they do, and they want that because then they stop you from doing it, or they make it so hard and uncomfortable for you to do it, you don't even enjoy it anymore for that matter, that then they do it and they take all the limelight, even though they don't really want to do it, and they don't care less about the birds or the wildlife. They don't even like that. They have no relationship to any life. But all I was going to show here, and I'm in physical distress, so I can't really keep going with this. But all I was just showing was those two things because it come up to me, and I hope I'm filming this well. But, they are the same. They are both, even though, like I say, most on the computer will not openly say, look, I am a psychopath, telling you about psychopaths, warning you of how to avoid them and how they think, and that you should be careful, and this sort of. Most of them will, be pretend human beings that are psychopaths, pretending to be victims of psychopaths or having relationships with them, and therefore they are helpfully putting the information out there on the internet or on the computer. This is not so. Everything that is on the computer or the internet is not so. It is all exactly like these psychopathic narcissists are. Basically all not true. It is all designed to get you in, to influence you, to control you, to get you to admire and respect them, and to spend your time watching them and thinking they are your helpful friends. Just as the personal people that are around, the same ones that stalk, patrol, and try to control you, will smile in your face and pretend to be a friend if you will allow them, because then they can have access to your energy and your admiration close up to where they can literally take you over and eventually but both, like I know this because if I think, like, this is how I picked it up, like if I think of particular words, like if I was thinking of normal people, or the word that narcissists are like that, then it comes up as a total video. And if I think of normal people, these artificial demigod type beings, because it doesn't matter whether you get that amount of views or more views. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if it's 11 years or 3 days. They will use your words, your thinking, your ideas because they want to combine with the human mind, the real human mind. This is why they do it to real so-called normal people, because, and then of course we have whether all these things are true or not, all these other things, in other words, events, because different people will be seduced, and when I say that, or influenced, or will listen to different things on the internet. But, you know, these demigod ones are trying to combine with the human mind. But also they know that the real human mind, or like, for instance, if I think of normal people, supposing because I have used that, I've said, you know, no one is normal. These people are not normal, whether they pretend to be or not. He doesn't pretend to be normal. Others do. These are just two very small examples on the computer. But they would use the words and the thoughts that you think in order to try to combine with the human mind or the human thinking, because I think that it works this way, to where if they can combine with, like, say for instance, they definitely try to combine with my mind, and they definitely are taking my thoughts and my everything that is human in my thinking and using it on the internet. There's no doubt about that for me, but I can't prove that. But either way, what I'm trying to say is that when they are able to do this, as they have and do and are doing it now and have done it, it's like it is like what some people have called the merging of the computer mind, which is the same as these demigods or the artificial android AI beings, because they're artificial intelligence. But even if they were just like, you know, not normal and just psychopathic types in nature, to where they basically don't feel like real human life and don't have any feelings towards any life as we know, and are basically very controlling, very destructive in how they will use, you know, another individual human being. We know this, if you're unlucky enough to encounter them. But there won't be any luck about it, because if you have, like I say, a whole community around you that is basically of this type, even though they pretend to be normal people, because that is the end time deception. That's why they say that in the end time, many will be probably, you know, like asked to see the truth, or called, but they won't actually choose the truth. They won't, because they may be deceived. So many many will be called to see the truth, but many will be deceived, as I've been deceived. In fact, like I've said before, if they hadn't come down and openly exposed themselves, but don't forget that when they did that, when they first did that, they were hoping that you would not see the truth, that you would misinterpret it, that you wouldn't see it on the bigger scale. In fact, they became progressively worse as I became more aware. But I still, even at the beginning, still realised that it probably started very close to home, shall we say, in other words, close to my house, because even to, you know, to decide to come down on someone to close in is when the artificial ones perceive some sort of threat to where they will act defensively before you act. They have to be, as they will tell you even on here, they have to be one step ahead of you. They have to be one step ahead of the game. So they anticipate your every move. And because they actually can watch you so much and can read the thoughts, as you can imagine, they are always one step of the game. But they still, if they're playing it like covertly, like what they call the covert, KN, or, you know, psychopath, doesn't matter, they're all the same, because, you know, if they latch on to you, see, you know, if you want to be technical about it and intellectual and psychological, obviously I've watched a million videos, so, you know, I'm a little bit know-it-all now, a little bit expert on it, shall we say. But that's only because I've had to try to understand for my own self, you know. But, you know, if you have, like, you know, the psychopathic type, and I'm probably diverging here, but if you have, like, say, psychopathic, you know, a lot of people say that psychopaths only want what they want, and they won't be like the so-called narcissistic kind of psychopath that that is a lot more unrealistic. Like, they're a lot more just controlling, and they will even, like I've said before, be like the kamikaze pilots, whereas the psychopath is usually a little bit more practical, although I don't even know if this is 100% true. I think they do try to be self-preserving and do try to cover their tracks and do try to, because they are survival machines when it really comes down to it, in the sense that that is what they think they're doing. They see everything as a threat to them, a threat to their ego, which is their survival. Because, like the original Lucifer, only saw everything as an ego thing, wasn't it? It's like, I'm doing great, but I want to be number one. I'm number two, but I want to be number one. I'm second in command, but I want to be top in command. I'm a demigod, I'm second to God, but I want to be God. So it was an ego-based mentality. And myself, I would say it was downright foolish, but that's only because I would say it doesn't matter. Like, if you're doing great and you're greatly admired, and you're even admired by number one, does it matter? But if you have a very strong ego and you're very petty and you've lost touch with reality, this is what they call the iniquity. That was the iniquity that was found in that original very high demigod, or you know, being, was the iniquity of the iniquity was the insanity of, you know, being totally egocentric, or in other words, to where you lose touch with reality because you are basing your entire existence just on being number one, or like assuming that you are God, or assuming that you can control and should have control over everyone and everything. And this is what happens at the community level when you have large numbers of psychopathic, egocentric people that decide to combine because they are weak individually and don't really want to take on, say, a particular person. But also they think that they can really control someone by, forming a group, forming a community. Of course, this has probably been taking place over a long period anyway. But also, if you do actually are part of this artificial belief system, and you are actually a believer in that particular demigod, that particular, because I was just going to say this, like I was just going to say that that it's all about belief, even though I myself have had no beliefs most of my life. So it's only like, to me, it's like now seeing some sort of truth. It'll soon be dark. That's the last light in that window. In fact, that's the last of the light. That's the last of the light, so it should be quiet now. It has not been quiet, but it's because we have like 2 hours of light, even though it's past normal work time, because we don't go by the natural sun in Sydney, Australia. We have the where they change the clocks so that people have more daylight longer in the already too hot summertime, in my view. But that's just my opinion, and that's a belief too, or opinion really. It's not a belief. It's not something that I, we all may disagree on small points, but you see, if you disagree on a small point with psychopathic type people, that's like disagreeing on some world issue that could literally lead to the destruction of them and the whole reality. So that's because that's how they what they call micromanage, or try to micromanage, and they actually do, the human being. Because if they think that you're not 100% in agreement or under their control, and how could you be? How could any real human being actually agree with everything that any other human being or any other community or group, or even if it's like at a country level or at a local council level, you couldn't possibly agree with every single thing, could you? You couldn't. And yet these psychopathic, narcissistic types of artificial beings expect you to agree with everything, because their number one thing is controlling you and controlling the reality. In other words, controlling the community around you, controlling their local area. Because of that, they actually do expect you to agree with every single thing. They don't allow that is not normal at a human level at all. And I'm just gonna for no reason, I have done this before, but I'm just gonna do these I'm just going to go on to that just briefly, because I like the images and because I feel a little bit that what I'm saying is not maybe that interesting to people. because unless you're talking to, like I say, a human being that is actually not only aware that there is kind of like people, human beings that are consciously like on the lower end of human frequency and vibration. In other words, that they are in the very negative psychopathic state of mind, or what you would call, the deliberate suppression of other human beings' vibration, because they don't agree with them, they don't want to tolerate them, they want to have full control. And I'm trying to use very explicit words here because otherwise it just doesn't gel with most people, and it wouldn't gel with me even a few years ago. I would say it's exaggerating, but it's actually not. But I'm going to just show the obvious, what has been going on in Hollywood or on the movie screen or on the computer, because it doesn't matter if it's only in, say, movies, or if it's only your your music idols. It doesn't matter, or those that you listen to, regardless of how well known or how successful they are. If you're a real human and you're giving anything on the computer your attention, and they are influencing you, and you are trusting and believing what they say, or even sometimes it works the other way, that of course you could actually not say like someone, but if you still watch them a lot because they make you angry, that is still giving them your negative energy, which negative energy, I have been told by the professor that talks about, and I showed his picture just a minute ago, the professor, not mentioning names, the professor that makes endless videos and does many talks and seminars all over the world on the nature of the psychopathic and the condition and the extreme condition of narcissism, when it is like where the person is totally consumed with egocentric narcissistic personality disorder. They say it's a disorder because it's where there is nothing else. It's where the person's whole life revolves only around them controlling and being the centre of attention. And that is like where that being has assumed a godlike personality, or a godlike insanity in their own mind, to where they think they can control their whole surroundings. And this is essentially what makes it very negative for any real human, normal human being that wants to just live a relatively free life. When I say relatively, because there's no such thing as total freedom, just as there is no such thing as total control. But these beings don't accept that. They want you to have no freedom, and they want to have total control. They want a total technical control matrix in a way. Even if you had a bunch of, like I say, if the population of my suburb is 15,000, and I have over 14,000 that are psychopathic, narcissistic in nature, in other words, where they're controlling individuals that, whether they combine or even individually, are around you, whether they know it or not. And I think they do know it. I think and also it is controlled by this God that is always been about controlling humanity. But that's the bigger worldwide picture, or the Earth matrix picture, as we'd say. But if you just had, individual psychopathic types that want total control, over a human being. It wouldn't matter if they were combining or not. They would still be creating chaos, but they have combined, because you can't have a systematic patrol control force around people that involves every vehicle and most people, without that. And I just lost my train of thought. I was nearly there to finish that sentence about if you have 15,000 in an area but you have over 14,000 that are all of the same personality type, you're going to have a major problem if you think that you are living in a free, natural, normal, random world when their whole nature is about controlling. So what I'm trying to say is that my train of thought just come back. In other words, that supposing you just had 14,000 or 14,500 that are of the psychopathic, narcissistic nature, because gradually over time they've all decided to infiltrate a particular suburb, probably because they have certain traits in common, mainly the duality reality that they are of the duality and mindset that human beings should be not separate male female, but they are inherently meant to be duality beings. Because this is what I was told a few years ago, but I didn't comprehend it then, and I still don't. So I'm just throwing random basic facts that I've heard out there. This is the difference, I think, between the words. Like, for instance, you could read a book, you could read the Bible, you could read religious doctrines, religious text. Is that the word? Text, books, which will then come into a belief system which will form a religion. But if those written words that are the text or the Bible or the book or the story that you believe to be true, if it's based on the word, which it is, because books are words, but if they change those words over time or alter even a few words, you may get a wrong perception of what is the basic truth. So what I'm trying to say is that I was told this a few years ago, that the spirituality of the demigods and the God entity that rules the reality is essentially the belief that the original real creation that was put in earth was a duality being, a two-faced man that had both male-female characteristics. In other words, it was a two-in-one, completely self-sufficient, so-called perfect being. Whereas the other doctrine, like even from a biblical point of view, is where you interpreted that there was a separate man-woman. There was Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were not the duality androgyne two-faced being. Actually, I would say the two-faced, because we all know that two-faced not only means that you have the duality male-female mentality and body, but that you also have a two-faced disposition, which is a lot more like the God of this reality, isn't it? Because its beings are two-faced in their personality. They present a persona of being really human and liking humanity, whereas in reality they want to influence and control and actually only take and kill the human spirit. And they do this because they resent, like if you take it from that original story, they resent the original God of creation that would have created, created things. And so they want to have their own kingdom. They want to make their own presence felt, in the sense that if you think of it, like, I would just say that if you control humanity, which is connected to creation, then you are like God. So that is essentially the demigod, or the or even, like, if you want to say, you know, the original one that wished to take over creation and wanted to be God of all, then this taking over of the creative human beings shows this God, or this demigod, this being, to be supreme and almost equal to the original creator God. And also it is like a throwing it up in the face of the creator being that your creation is not able to withstand the influence and the control of that being, because it's like saying, look how silly we are. Look how silly that I, who am not the creator God, but was a created being, am able to have supremacy over that which is connected to creation, and is and should be a creator being, a real human normal being, real life, as opposed to artificial life, which is all about control and just assimilating those human traits into their mind so that they can influence and control the real life. Because, you know, that was what the iniquity was. The iniquity of this being was that it did not have the higher vibrations. It did not feel the higher creative, or what you would term the higher human I can't think of the word, but it's like I say, it's the difference. It's basically the difference between life and non-life. It's basically the difference between creation and destruction. This being creates through eliminating or destroying, but then assimilating those positive human traits into its false persona in order to control and eliminate more real life, or if not eliminate, control. Because if you control something excessively, you will eliminate their freedom to be a creative, normal human being. And that's essentially what technology is. And that's essentially what's happened, because, you know, if you combine with a computer and you don't know that you're really combining with this technical God and its belief system, but also, like I've said before, if you believe, as many do for what I can see, that the original man was a duality, androgyne, artificial, maybe they might not see the artificial or the AI component in it. You know, but that's just what I see, so I put that there. But, you know, if you just... But also you have to say this. All I can say is this, right? Like, to me, this is just how I would see it, but it will be opinion. If, you know, the original creation on earth that came from original creation, like supposing the first being, the first, say, human being, that's just me putting words on it, because I could be wrong, I'm ignorant. But the first human being, depending on, like I say, if you interpret a book or a story a particular way, because like I've heard this was said to me a few years ago, in the image of God created, man was created, but in the image of God created he, that's man. But many say that is not the right words. So it's like in the image of God created he them, which is like man and woman, because it depends on which version you want to incorporate, you see. And I'm not explaining this well. Not at all. So if you believe that the original demigod, or the original first being, the first created being, was a duality being, two in one and two-faced, which is like your demigods, because they have changed themselves to be like what they think was the original creation. Or if you think that, as is another thing, that there was separate creation, and then there was a separate creation. In other words, man, woman were created separately. They were two individual separate beings that were meant to just individually get on, which appears to be the world that we appear to live in. But of course, we now know this is not so, and in particular areas, particularly where I am, even though it's not out in the open, some is, most isn't. You do have the duality, androgyne beings. But what I'm trying to say is that regardless of whether there are a magnificent demigod or just normal people around you, which may not be quite as impressive as the demigods, you know, they are your duality androgyne beings, because they believe, I'm guessing, that you know, original creation was meant to be not separate, and that it's a benefit, which would kind of seem interesting and even impressive, that yes, wouldn't it be good if you were self-sufficient and man and woman in one? I personally think that whether you're man or woman, you can be individual and self-sufficient, but that's just, you know, how I've thought of my own life. But, you know, like I say, it's all a belief, and I think I've run out of space, so I can't even film this, can't film the bits that I wanted to show on these videos, because, oh, I don't know,